Welcome to another edition of the MDM podcast. With MDM, you gain market intelligence, insights, and research to succeed in wholesale distribution markets. Now in our 57th year, we help industry leaders like you drive innovation and outperform your competition. I'm Mike Hockett, our executive editor. Anytime I see a distributor that's frequently making acquisitions, I can't help but wonder how its leadership team is managing all of the moving pieces involved in keeping the train on the tracks. Just to make one acquisition in a calendar year is a big event. The level of communication, strategic planning, and integration coordination is immense to ensure a smooth process. We at MDM have witnessed this firsthand so far in 2024 with our mid-January acquisition by the National Association of Wholesaler Distributors. In this episode, two veteran executives from Green Mountain Electric Supply, their VP of Operations Luke Choquette and VP of Sales Jeremy Henderson, share how the distributor has made this work effectively, as the company has made about a dozen acquisitions since the start of 2021, growing its footprint to 34 locations across the U.S. Northeast as of late May. When those two started with Green Mountain 16 and 17 years ago, the company had about 40 employees. Today, it has over 450. So it was great to discuss the distributor's expansion story and what's on the horizon. Enjoy. Jeremy, Luke, thanks for joining the MDM podcast.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Excited to be here.
It's always good to start with an introduction. So let's go with Jeremy first and then Luke. Can you provide a quick bio of sorts as far as your title and your current responsibilities?
Kind of a tough thing here in Green Mountain. We're not big on titles, but I guess if we could label one today, I'm the vice president of sales here at Green Mountain. My, I guess, job description on paper says, kind of sales management, leading our sales team, our project teams, special sales divisions within Green Mountain. Tertiary responsibilities is helping run this company. So that can mean a lot of different things. Yeah, I think it changes daily, honestly, and it pivots depending on the year and our needs at Green Mountain to what my focus is on that day or week.
Over to Luke.
Yeah, and so same, right? I'm the opposite of Jeremy, so I'm the VP of operations instead of sales, and basically I deal with all the things that Jeremy didn't say he deals with. So I deal with all of the more of the real estate, the acquisitional stuff, the operations of the business, the fleet, health insurance, HR, business insurance stuff. So I'm kind of on the other side of things and helping continue to move the company forward.
All right. Well, we will dive into the ins and outs of Green Mountain Electric Supply in just a bit. But first, is there any sort of interesting fact about yourself? Or if not, is there something that you're passionate about outside of work that you want to share?
Man, yeah, interesting facts. I probably have a few, but I'm an avid outdoorsman. I'm an avid hunter and runner, and that's kind of my passions. Outside of sports and coaching my kids, still like being around sports and in the games, and pretty simple guy outside of work.
Got it. Over to Luke.
Yeah, and for me, it's I'm a family guy first. Certainly, coach my kids in sports as well. But at the end of the day, if people want to know something about me, is I'm a huge Montreal Canadiens hockey fan.
Very nice. Well, Green Mountain certainly has a lot going on lately, but I'm sure there's still a lot of our audience, which primarily consists of distribution executives, that aren't familiar with the company. So as we're early on here, can you walk through a snapshot of what GMES is, what it looks like today, and the markets that it serves?
To some sense, I think it's by design why we're secretive, Mike. I think we're not the distributor that likes to kind of boast about our size and scale, and we've always kind of done things under the radar. Probably what most people don't realize is how big we are. Now we have brick and mortar in 5 different states, northern New England, upstate New York, and in Pennsylvania, and we service roughly 8 states via logistics and trucks on a daily basis. I would say that's kind of the biggest thing people don't realize about us. And, I think I think we, our third generation owned company. And, we started as a motor winding shop in 1953. I'm sure we'll get into more details about that later, but I think our growth and everything we've done is now exposed. We're on the radar, but our intentions, we try to do the right things. And, we are trying to get our scale and growth out to our customers to understand that we can service the guy with one van and we can service the contractor with 500 guys in the field. I think our service is very adaptable to our customer base.
Yeah, and on that note, I myself was kind of surprised when I saw that Green Mountain it's now over 30 locations, which was definitely more than I thought that you guys had. So the company now does have a pretty sizable footprint. Luca, anything to add there just about who Green Mountain is?
Yeah, just that, we do have 34 locations, so it's even in the mid 30s now. And Jeremy and I both started a long time ago. And, when I first started, there was 4 locations and 30 employees. So things have really escalated quickly. And I hope that we can say that we're a big part of that. And I'll go back to Jeremy mentioned that we're third generation family owned. And I really feel like we're still a family business, even though we have over 400 employees or over 450 employees at this point. We might not know every employee at our company, but man, we try really hard to know every employee at our company. And at the same time, our family values really ring through in our company. And I think that helps us continue to grow because our employees feel that as well. And, personally, Jeremy and I feel that as well. So, we're not family members of the ownership group, but man, we make decisions all day, every day that we feel like we're owners. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Well, Luke, you mentioned you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, a big one, and I'm guessing a big part of that is because Green Mountain's headquarters, and is it pronounced Choquette?
Choquette, yep.
Choquette in New Hampshire is only about 40 miles south of the Canadian border and about 90 miles from Montreal. So I was curious, does the company service Canadian customers in the region north of New Hampshire, or does it stick to basically everything south?
Great question. We typically, most of our business is south of the border, just like you would expect. We do a little bit of business, very, very, very minor amount of business in Canada, and certainly have the capability to do that. It's not a focus of ours, and we don't foresee having any brick and mortar in Canada anytime soon.
It's worth noting, Mike, that Luke has to pay his electric bill to the Border Patrol because that's how close he lives to the Canadian border. So we joke about that quite frequently, that Luke has access. He can be to the Bell Center in Montreal in 40 minutes?
45 minutes, yeah, exactly.
45 minutes.
Yeah.
They don't even have to check him in now.
I don't call the police. I actually call the Border Patrol when something happens at my house. And true story that happened this week. So and they're there within 3 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And well, there is a lot of history with Green Mountain ever since it was founded in 1953 in Newport, Vermont. And while we don't have time to explore it all, I do want to highlight a few milestones real quick. In 1986, the company pivoted away from rewinding and repairing motors and focused its efforts more on electrical supply. It made its first acquisition in 2001, and as we alluded to here, has really been on an acquisition journey since. And correct me if I'm wrong, the last I saw is it made 18 acquisitions over the past 24 years, and 11 of them have happened since the start of 2021. So a lot of activity lately, and that also includes a lot of new branch openings. And we kind of touched on, you two have seen a lot of that rapid expansion lately. You both joined the company around the same time between 2007, 2008. So what has it been like to be a part of all of this growth, especially the past 3 years where the company has really gone pretty aggressively expanding? So what's it been like to see this expansion journey?
I think it's pretty humbling. I think when we started, talking in this conversation is, about being secretive. Not many people realize what Green Mountain is, or, if they hear about us, they're like, are you guys the power company or the coffee company? Do you guys make coffee? And we're telling a story as we go in writing this book. And I think that's the special thing. And I tell people this all the time is we don't know what we don't know. We've only grown up in this business. We haven't worked for a bunch of other companies. And I think our focus is really creating the company culture in the direction that we want to go in, and obviously getting buy-in from the team to help us get there. that's been, from the day one I got hired, Nate and Josh Labor, the two of the owners, painted a picture for me 16 years ago saying, hey, we want to hire key people, like-mindedness, to help us continue to grow this organization. And back then it didn't make sense. Like, I'm like, can we get there? Is that just a pie in the sky dream? But we've kind of made that the ethos along the way. We've brought in, we have a very strong team that works hard, and that's allowed us to grow. And I think that's the coolest part, is creating promotional opportunities internally for our team, expanding new markets, reaching new customers, dealing with new vendors, and having people talk positively about us, a lot of positive feedback along the way within the industry, kind of cheering us on. And that's motivating, very motivating and humbling.
It has been a fun, wild ride, right? You just said 3 years. It's been a crazy 3 years. And if you look at our locations, they're not near each other either. So geographically, we might have to be driving 6 hours away or 7, 8 hours away to help with some of these situations. And when I say help with these situations, Jeremy and I are in the mix, actually putting product on the shelves in week one, trying to get the business up and running. So we've gotten pretty good at it, I think. I say that pretty confidently. We're pretty good at it. And we have a lot of team members that work really hard and are very helpful in these situations. So from our accounting team to our purchasing team to our inventory team to our IT team to our branch efficiency team to all the local people in that market that come and help for the weekend, that when we get things rolling or the following week, man, we have a really hardworking team, and it's something to be really proud of when you walk away on that Friday and say, man, we just accomplished all of that this week. It's pretty amazing, actually.
That's great. Gaining territory and market share is always a key factor in a distributor's acquisition strategy, but I'm curious to learn more about Green Mountain's acquisition criteria and, what's on its checklist. So I don't know if you can share everything, but what is on the company's checklist when it comes to prospecting for a company or location that it wants to make part of its footprint?
I feel like that's a blank piece of paper some days. We're very opportunistic, and I think our appetite on how we view growth in acquisitions, I'm heavily involved with AD as a buying group, and then I meet with a lot of distributors across the country, and they're always asking me that same question. I think it comes down to a couple of things. I think you have to have an ownership group that has an appetite for investments, right? If you have an ownership group that doesn't want to reinvest, you're not going to grow. You're not going to take those chances. I think the other thing is having the right people. If we're going to make an acquisition, to Luke's point, right, we have a whole army of folks behind us that can hop in and help us take over a situation, take over a branch, location, company, whatever it is. And without that, we're not growing, right? And then it's the branch staff to get the right people in play within the branch to run the day-to-day operations. Logistically, is it in a territory that we can feed, because customers are first, right? If we can't service our customers there, then what good are we? I think you put all these things in this kind of kit and caboodle, and at the end of the day, a lot of times it's Luke, Josh, Nate, and I on a conversation could be at 10 o'clock at night saying, hey guys, does this feel like this is on our growth path? And it's really a majority vote. It's a yes or no, but we know if we're all in, we're going to go make it work. And I think that's the confidence we have as a leadership team, but we have a team with us that follows us and is committed to our direction.
And the only thing I'll add is, at the end of the day, we have some locations that make it work in towns that have 3,500 people, maybe even less. So we see it as, if there is any sort of population there, and competition is far enough away that we can potentially sneak a building in and have people, we can put a branch in. So that doesn't answer the question about an acquisition, but certainly we think that we can make it work in small populated areas as long as we can find a decent building and decent people.
The element of company culture, which you already kind of touched on with the company's ethos, culture has taken on such a heightened importance over the past few years, given how labor and talent dynamics really shifted ever since the pandemic arrived. How would you describe the culture there at Green Mountain, and how does the company go about maintaining or enhancing it amid all of this expansion and I assume a lot of headcount being added?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? I think through acquisitions, and I look back to when we went into Buffalo, we essentially integrated 4 teams within 3 weeks of each other. People that were competing against each other now have to get along and learn how to service these accounts and create the right message. So we're not creating conflict and we're not creating questions from our customers whether we can service their accounts. Honestly, this is probably at the top of our list right now. We're in the midst of, with the amount of employees we have, we're leaning on within the last couple of years, we actually created another layer within a territory manager. Previous to that, it was Luke and I that were in the branches all the time. Now we have another layer of territory managers because of our geographic footprint to reverberate those heartbeats and those messages to our team. And we're forced to trust a lot more people now. That's not a bad thing, but I would say that has been a scary transition for us and a kind of soul searching where we were involved in everything. And Luke, to Luke's point, we know a lot of our employees, but we don't get to spend a lot of time with them like we used to spend with them when we were 40 employees. So I think that's our biggest challenge, but it's also leads us to how we move forward and how we interact with our team. Because if we're not in the mix, if we're not talking with our team, we feel like we lose that culture. So I think it's important for all of us to make sure that we're doing our job and staying in contact with the team, leading by example has kind of been how we've always moved forward, and that's important to us.
And I'll just go in a little bit of a different direction too. As I mentioned earlier, we're a family-run business, and we still feel like we're a family company. And I think if you were to ask a lot of our team members that have been here for 5+ years, they're going to say they feel like they're part of the family. So we want to continue to have people feel that way. So we continue to try to make that message happen. And at the same time, we're a phone call away. Everybody's a phone call away. And we want to make sure that we continue to be that way. So, we think that is one of the secret sauces of Green Mountain Electric Supply is that, if you need an answer on a delivery that's going to happen at 2 a.m. for a random branch in Buffalo, New York, let's say, for a contractor that needs that every day for the next 3 months, it's one call away. And we're hoping to find a way to make that work. And that's it. It's a simple process.
And then similarly, but kind of beyond culture, anytime a distributor, especially a family-run independent distributor, is expanding at anywhere near the pace that Green Mountain is, it always makes me wonder just how the heck the company is managing all those moving pieces and really just keeping the train on the tracks as all these new locations and people are being added. So just in a nutshell, how have you and the team really made it work there?
That's a great question. I think, it really comes down to, like what Luke was alluding to is being available, right? And I think for us, we've always led by representing that we're a resource to the team. And as we grow and we continue to add employees, we always continue to be a resource for that team. I think that goes a long ways. I hear a lot of industry static about leadership being disconnected from its team, and I think that's what breaks down culture. And I think from a leadership team, we have to be in contact with our team, communicating, and they need to see that you're working hard for them and they're going to work hard with you, and we work alongside our team. We don't micromanage. So I think when a lot of new folks come on, it's exciting to hear when people come on and say, hey, this is a breath of fresh air. I was at another organization that I was just a number. Now I'm here. You guys are, welcoming me with open arms. And for us, it's just, we're no different. None of us are different. But I think some organizations treat a hierarchy much different than we do. We're very flat, and we're proud of that because I'm no better than anybody in this company. And we're all a piece of the puzzle, and we need to work together.
And the only thing I'll add is, again, we just have really good people. So how does it continue to move forward? We just keep adding more layers, and growth creates opportunity, right? Our employees that we bring in as a counter sales person, let's say, might down the road might be a branch manager. That branch manager might be a territory manager. That territory manager might turn into a higher level position down the road as well. And Jeremy and I are both examples of that exact situation. We grew up in this industry as counter sales guys or warehouse people and learned learn from the bottom up. And I hope that we can never get to the point where we don't have that happening, because, we just love to give our employees opportunity, and that's how we just keep making this happen. All of a sudden we add a branch in a far away place, and an employee that's a counter salesperson that has been for 3 years for us says, I want to move there. I'd move there. And then they become a branch manager there. And it's a great opportunity for people. So it's a pretty cool story.
Well, we know distributors of all shapes and sizes are going through a digital transformation that never is really complete. And besides all of the expansion investment that we've talked on, can you share any recent developments of ongoing projects that Green Mountain has, especially on the technology or digital side?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you have to adopt a strategy of some sort. And I think for distribution, it's been a wonky couple of years to figure out, which direction to go in. We saw the e-com was kind of the first thing that comes up, is like what your selling avenues, is e-com going to be a selling arm or mechanism for your business? And how does that look like? Digital storefronts. We went through that process a few years ago with the website. Then we moved to the app, right? It's kind of like banking now. Like people want to touch their money 24 hours a day for a distributor, and with the other pressures from the Amazons or other vendors in the marketplace on the digital side, as a distributor, you have to be able to touch your customer 24/7. And how do you do that? So I think that the app and the website have been good avenues for us. Our social media push, we've got a pretty good presence on all the kind of major platforms. Still evaluating of, what does that mean? Is it tangible? Are we growing business because of it? Or are we creating a brand, that people will think about Green Mountain when they think about, company culture, or they're thinking about products and services. And I think that's what it is you got to continue to put out content to show you're relevant, and you're trying to move forward to better service your customers and be better for your employees and a resource. I'll let Luke get into the operation side, because I think that's the more important thing moving forward. Is, you mentioned, keep the train on the tracks. A lot of what we're doing moving forward and thinking about is operationally, how do we become more sound? And a lot of that's going to be looking towards more of a, I would say a digital side with our delivery services and Domino tracker stuff. You want to talk about that, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I would add to your part, we want to be easy to do business with, I think, in general, right? So however our customers want to interact with us, if it's texting us or calling us, emailing us, using an app, using a website, we want to make sure that we have those solutions all around. So we're going to continue to invest in those solutions for our customer base. And then certainly on the operations side, I think it's very similar. What do our customers want? They want tracking. They want delivery notifications. They want to make sure that their orders are accurate. And so we're going to continue to do everything we can on our side to improve our operations, to ensure that our customers are getting everything they want in the field as well. And I really think this is a big deal for distributors in general. Software integration will continue to be one of the biggest priorities and one of the biggest hindrances of business in general, right? This is going to continue to be a very difficult thing for businesses to do. And how do you know you're making the right decision on that software? Or how do you know you're going down the right path? There is no book that you can read about this and it can tell you how to handle it. Kind of have to make the decisions as you go, and understand your customer base, understand your employee base, and understand your manufacturers and vendors to make sure you're going down the right path.
One thing I wanted to touch on, I was curious about, was I saw that on April 8th, when the solar eclipse happened, all Green Mountain locations closed at noon that day, with no deliveries made that day, which was a Monday. Your headquarters in Colchester, Vermont was essentially right in the line of totality. I was just curious, did you guys receive much pushback from customers about that, or did they really take it in stride?
I'm actually, it was a great marketing opportunity. I don't think we get enough mileage out of, quite frankly, because I think we end up having 4 branches or like relatively totality, something like that. Because Rochester, it came over Rochester too, and across the northern zone. No, I got to be honest, Mike. When this came up originally, we had a lot of concerned employees that especially Rochester is supposed to get like 250,000 people in rushing. Colchester, Vermont, 500,000 people. These numbers, you're like St. J is one of our, smaller locations. And that was the Boston Globe listed that as like the destination for Northern New England. And we're like, I don't think 500,000 people are going to fit in St. J. So we didn't know what to expect. And then it kind of got turned up. There was some truth came to it that was like, okay, this is really happening. These people are going to be heading to these locations. And there's a high level of ignorance on our side. We started getting calls from our customers saying, hey, we're closing, or we're working 4 days this week. We're closing on Monday. And at the end of the day, we didn't want to put our employees or our customers, at risk or getting caught. I mean, New York even had a ban on travel to a certain degree. So, I think those are the things at Green Mountain, like we look at. I was certainly getting some static from some of our distributor friends down south because they weren't in it. And they were saying, you guys are really closing for this. But at the end of the day, like, we're going to do what's best for our customers and our employees. And surprisingly enough, we're getting more pushback by not doing something than doing something. So it gave us opportunity to give our team the afternoon off, go enjoy something that some of us might not ever see again, a cool part of history. I think those are little things about Green Mountain that make us is like, we're willing to go out on a limb and make a decision like that. Might be unfavorable in one aspect, but highly received positively on another aspect. And we weren't hurt by it, and everybody had a good afternoon off, and we had a lot of stories to tell about staring at the sun. So
Yeah, so I'm in southern Wisconsin. I drove down to the southern tip of Illinois to watch it in totality, and same thing. The traffic situation was no joke as far as how it impacts trucking and how you're going to get things across certain highways that are just packed to the gills with all these people going to a certain spot. It did make some decisions like that. So it did make me curious. Yeah, if everyone around that totality line where you guys were, if it was a widespread kind of business closure, at least for the afternoon. So it sounds like that might have been the case.
Yeah, it was certainly maybe more 50-50 or 60-40 of businesses closing than staying open. But certainly, I think for our employees, that was an awesome day, right? We worked half the day, and then hopefully most people that I heard stories from went home with their families, sat in a lawn chair, put the glasses on, and saw something really cool that they didn't expect to be nearly that cool at all. I think looking back, I think that's going to be a very memorable situation for me and my family. And I know Jeremy feels that way as well. So, I'm really glad that we made that decision because it was certainly the right decision for our company.
Well, back on the kind of operational and getting into the more sales and marketing side, we mentioned how with 34 locations, Green Mountain certainly isn't a small distributor, but even so, I was really impressed with the company's social media presence and how it's really along the lines of that of a much bigger company, with how often and just to the degree that it's using social media as a marketing tool. You guys are posting almost daily with product promos, company updates, job openings, and other promos across Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. You have an active YouTube channel that does the same. So what can you say about what Green Mountain is doing on that marketing front, at least is social media front, and really taking advantage of the free social media and marketing that is available out there?
I'd like to make a note that we are testing TikTok too, Mike. So
Nice.
TikTok world, it's totally new for me. So I think I know I touched base on earlier, but it's this brand and image, and I think continue to put content to get in front of your customers. We're evaluating different platforms. We look at it from an HR front. Everybody's got a post for hiring out there, but what platforms do better for job postings? What platforms do better for product? What's better for culture postings? And I think it's some interesting analytics that come back through that stuff. I joke about TikTok, but there's a stat out there that more electricians actually look at TikTok than they do LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is maybe more of a business professional platform where better opportunity for us to hit our vendors there. Facebook and TikTok might be better for our contractors. So we've done a good job of testing the waters. Now I think we're trying to refine it. We've recently hired a marketing manager. We've added to our marketing team. It was something that was lackluster for us originally. We kind of did it by committee. It was, okay, who wants to volunteer for the marketing committee? And Luke and I got voluntold, we're part of it. And finally, we're like, okay, let's get our act together, because this needs to be a big part of our business, is marketing of it, because we are a relatively unknown name in some of these markets. We need to get out there. It's like the sixth man on the basketball court, but that's our outside sales guy, right? Is our social media. And it's important to us. And I think we realize the benefits of doing it versus not.
And don't let Jeremy fool you. He's still on MySpace. He doesn't know what social media really is yet. So he read that on Chat GPT or something.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, I think thanks for the kind words there, Mike, about our social media presence. But again, it goes back to we have a hardworking team on our marketing side. The team works hard to make sure that we're pumping out content often, and so that we can keep up with everybody else, and hopefully try to be an industry leader on social media and in any sort of marketing avenue.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where I've seen much larger distributors that just are way less active on social media than Green Mountain is. So kudos to you guys on there. And Green Mountain's 30 plus locations stretch from, I believe it's northwest Pennsylvania, like basically the northwest corner of Pennsylvania, to over nearly to Boston. And given all this recent expansion activity, I have to think that more is on the way. And I'm sure that you guys can't touch much on the when and where of this, but is there anything that you can share in terms of geographies that the company is eyeing, or just what the company's appetite for further expansion is?
Man, we could stir up the rumor mill right now, Mike. I mean, I get this comes up quite a bit. Is people are saying, "What's Green Mountain going to do next?" I think it goes back to what we discussed before is being very opportunistic and realistic about our growth trajectory. We're certainly servicing markets right now where we don't have brick and mortar. I think those are continued situations we need to view. We need to view to continue or review to diversify our business. And I think that can mean many different things. That could be complementary, that could be other branches, whatever it is. I think we're going to continue to be innovative at that. And I think we're going to continue to keep our head on a swivel. Not going to sit here and say, hey, we're going to go to this state tomorrow, but I can speak with pretty high confidence that we're going to continue to move and groove and grow how we have. And we're going to continue to add to the team and our branches and our support, and continue to create more resources so Green Mountain continues to be a viable distributor.
Yeah, and I don't have much to add to that other than continuing to grow is in our blood. It's in our DNA. It's who we are. We want to continue to move forward. We're all former, somewhat, Jeremy, not so much, but former athletes in a sense, and we all like to win. For us, winning is continuing to move forward and continuing to grow and adding locations. So we certainly, that it's not going to stop.
One more thing, sorry, I just think about this quite a bit. I meant to add this in, is people do also ask, what's the end goal? I think that's something we don't look at the end goal. We look at the process. And I think if there was an end goal to all of this, we'd be completely distracted and we would not be where we are today. Because people, certainly in our industry with consolidation and different things happening, people always wonder what the agendas are. We're not thinking that way. We're working through the process, and we're not focused on an end goal.
I saw a news post on the Green Mountain website about how the company's roadshow is about to start, and we're recording this here in the middle of May. And this roadshow seems to involve, from what I could see, a lot of the staff visiting a lot of different Green Mountain locations. So I'm curious to know what else this roadshow entails, which I have to think serves as a great way to help the company's growing locations count feel more connected. And like you said, get to know more of the employees throughout the company.
I think it's something we've always done. We've always done like counter day, different involvement where we bring our vendors in for a day. We cook up some burgers, or we bring in a barbecue vendor. We do a product showcase. We do some giveaways. Just kind of a moment to pause, get our teams together with our contractors and vendors, do a thank you, and have a little fun. It's something we're going to continue to evaluate, because we do notice we have 34 locations now. We don't want to tire out our vendors, right? It's a big ask for them to travel around and be part of those. We're very appreciative of it, and we get a lot of good feedback from our customer base, because they get to see these products and have kind of that day to reset and take an hour off from their work and come and hang out. So, we're excited about it. Also, Luke does better than I do traveling around to all of them. And I think it's also another way for us to engage with everybody when we're stuck behind the desk most days.
And we have a traveling van with a trailer that hooks on, and some working mini splits and other things in there as well. So, it's a nice way to get around to the stores, a nice way. Personally, I get around to about half of the road shows, gets me back in front of our team and allows me to have conversations and check in and work through conversation with the contractors as well and with our vendors. So it's a fun event that we travel around doing, and seems like it's pretty well attended as well. So certainly I think our customer base must appreciate it too.
Looking at the macroeconomic front here, the entire industrial supply sector seems to be in the midst of a demand slowdown or a softness that's really been in place since 2023's fourth quarter for most industries. Can you touch on what the demand outlook looks like for the electrical supply markets that Green Mountain serves, as far as what you guys are seeing or expecting for the rest of 2024?
I think there's for us the outlook in this year has been great. I think we're coming off a year where we grew top line, but we took a hit on bottom line because some of our investments in commodities, aluminum certainly was a big kind of asterisk last year. Pricing was all over the place, and if you invested heavy like we do, that also comes at a risk. I think coming into this year, we've really ramped up, rounded out our projects team. We're now established in some of our newer markets. The backlog is very strong, and I think certainly 2024 is going to be a banner year for Green Mountain. And I think beyond that, quite frankly, I think we're setting up quite nicely in our future investments next on our operations and looking at central hubs and things like that. I think will help support us even more to gain more traction in sales. So for our perspective is I would say we're always optimistic about what we're doing, and if we have to pivot and make changes, it's okay. But we recognize when we do, and if we got to do them, we can pivot quick. Unlike some other distributors who are kind of locked in and it's a slow turning boat, we can move quick. And if we have to focus in another market to make up for it, we'll do that. We'll do that quick.
Yeah, and no matter what's happening in the marketplace, our goal is to always steal market share anyway. So whether there's a downturn or not, we're going to attack that market and hope that we can continue to gain market share no matter what's going on around us in the greater economic picture.
Well, wrapping up here, before we sign off, is there anything else you think our audience of distribution executives would be interested to know about Green Mountain Electric Supply, or just any other parting thoughts?
No, hey, right. First and foremost, appreciate the conversation. I certainly appreciate Luke and I could talk about Green Mountain until you run out of film here. You get sick of hearing us. I mean, I think it's something we're all passionate about. Like Luke's mentioned a few times, we get a hardworking team. We have an ownership team that is very supportive, continuing to reinvesting more than I think most people will ever realize. And even our team, we don't give kudos to our ownership group, I think, enough on the appetite for investment, because that's really helped us just do what we do and allow us to grow. We're just trying to do the right things. Hopefully we're not misunderstood, and we just want to be good advocates for electrical distribution and set a good example, and tend to believe we're doing that, and hope we are, and hope we continue to do that. So just appreciate telling the story a little bit.
Yeah, and I'll say the same. Thanks, Mike, for having us. And certainly, I think passion is probably the first word that came to my mind. So I'm glad that Jeremy mentioned passion, because I certainly think that rings true, at all levels of our company. People are passionate. And then, we're still a young group in general, so the leadership group is 42, 41, 41, and Jeremy's, how old are you, Jeremy? 38 now, right?
39. I get to, I get a few more years than you guys.
Okay. Yeah. But in general, we have branch managers that are 23 years old or so we're not afraid of youth. And I think that's helped us as well. And, we're not afraid to train people from outside the industry to come into the industry. So, I think we've done a good job on all those things, bringing in people that are just out of school, just out of high school, just out of college, and train them, teach them the industry, and hope that they can take it on and, turn them from a counter person or a warehouse person into a branch manager or a territory manager, and keep telling our story. Our story is good. We have a good story. We're all good local redneck Vermont hardworking farmers in a sense, right? And we hope that we can continue to move forward in that path.
Well, I will definitely be keeping my eye on Green Mountain. I'm sure that there's going to be more news out of you guys coming forward. Yeah, really appreciate the conversation here. So Luke and Jeremy, thanks again for joining the MDM podcast. Thanks for listening to the MDM podcast. Like what you just heard? Subscribe to hear more or leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts, or see them all at mdm.com/podcasts.